Have you ever wondered how medieval castles were able to survive centuries of storms, wars, and human ambition? What secrets are hidden behind those towering walls that have watched over valleys and rivers for hundreds of years? And why do some castles remain almost perfectly preserved while others have crumbled into quiet ruins, leaving only faint traces in the earth? Tonight, we will step slowly into the world of medieval castles and explore the genius behind their design. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of a gently sloping hill, the grass soft beneath your feet as the silhouette of a massive stone fortress rises before you. Its towers reach into the sky as if trying to touch the clouds, while the fading light of evening casts long shadows across the walls and battlements. The wind moves softly around the towers, carrying the faint smell of moss, rain, and old stone. Somewhere far away, a horn sounds, echoing quietly through the valley. Castles were never just homes. They were fortresses built to protect, statements of power meant to impress, and feats of engineering that combined both practicality and imagination. Every wall, every arch, every winding corridor reflects careful planning and subtle genius. These fortresses were built to endure the test of time, to shelter families and soldiers, and to embody the authority of the Lord who commissioned them. As you approach the massive gates, imagine the work that went into every stone, the care with which builders shaped and positioned them, and the patience required to create a structure that could last for centuries. Castles were living spaces as well as defensive fortresses. Kitchens filled the air with the smell of fresh bread and roasting meat, blacksmiths worked quietly in shaded corners, and children ran along cobbled corridors. Life inside a castle moved at a slow, steady rhythm, where every action had meaning and every space was designed for purpose and safety. But castles also hid secrets. Hidden rooms, narrow passages, and tunnels connecting to nearby forests or villages were known only to those who built them or lived within their walls. These hidden spaces could serve as escape routes or secret supply passages during sieges, demonstrating a quiet, intelligent ingenuity that went unnoticed by most visitors. Tonight, as we walk through these walls, we will uncover some of these secrets, revealing a side of medieval life that few have ever seen. Imagine walking alongside the masons, the carpenters, and the lords who shaped these fortresses centuries ago, seeing how light and shadow played across the walls, and sensing the rhythm of life that flowed within. This is a story not of battles or conquest, but of patience, skill, and subtle brilliance. Each stone, each tower, each passage tells a story of human creativity and careful planning. Somewhere within the walls of these ancient castles lies a secret, a hidden genius that shaped history quietly and effectively, waiting for us to discover it together as we step deeper into this world of stone, shadow, and time. Every castle begins with a careful choice of location, and this choice was far from random. Builders and lords would survey the land with quiet attention, looking for places that offered both natural defense and control over the surrounding countryside. Imagine walking slowly along a gentle slope, arriving at a site where a castle will soon rise. Perhaps the hill provides a commanding view over winding rivers, valleys, and forests, allowing the castle's occupants to spot approaching travelers or potential threats long before they arrive. The land itself became part of the fortress, integrated seamlessly into its design. In many cases, rocky outcrops were used to support the weight of enormous stone walls, while rivers or marshlands were turned into natural moats, creating obstacles that enemies would struggle to cross. Builders also considered the soil and drainage, knowing that a castle's foundations had to be solid enough to hold massive towers for centuries. Even the orientation of walls mattered, as sunlight and prevailing winds influenced both comfort and the long-term preservation of stone and timber. Standing at such a location, one can almost feel the quiet deliberation of medieval masons as they studied the land and decided where the first foundation should be laid. Every mound of earth, every ditch, and every slope was part of a larger plan, an invisible blueprint dictated by both nature and human ingenuity. The selection of a location was not only about defense. It was also about control, authority, and the ability to manage the surrounding lands. A castle perched on a hill above a village or trade route symbolized power, sending a clear message to both allies and rivals about the strength of its lord. Yet this power was subtly balanced with practicality. The site needed access to water, fertile land, and a connection to the roads and rivers that would support life within the walls. Builders understood that a fortress could only serve its purpose if it could sustain the people living inside, including soldiers, servants, and the Lord's family. Imagine the first earthworks being prepared, mounds shaped by hand, ditches dug carefully to divert rainwater, and timber frames positioned as temporary supports. The castle rose not merely as a human creation, but as a careful conversation between human planning and the natural landscape. By the time stone was brought to the site, the castle already had the guidance of the land itself. This understanding of terrain reflects a quiet genius, a sensitivity to the environment that modern engineers would recognize. The very location of the castle became part of its strength, a first layer of protection, a strategic advantage, and a living testament to the thoughtfulness of its builders. As you imagine standing on the chosen hilltop, with the wind brushing against your face and the view stretching endlessly in every direction, you can sense the harmony between natural landscape and human ambition. The beginning of a story written in stone and earth, a story that has survived through centuries to whisper its secrets to those willing to look closely. In the earliest days of castle construction, most fortresses were made of wood, built quickly to provide immediate protection. These early structures, often called moat-and-bailey castles, consisted of a raised mound, or moat, supporting a wooden tower, while a lower courtyard, the bailey, was enclosed by a simple palisade. Imagine walking through such a castle, the smell of freshly cut timber filling the air, and the soft sound of wooden planks creaking beneath your feet. The walls were quick to erect, the gates simple, yet the design allowed defenders to see far across the surrounding lands and respond to threats. However, wood had its limits. It rotted over time, it could catch fire, and it offered little resistance against increasingly powerful siege weapons. As centuries passed, builders realized that to create fortresses that would endure, they needed something stronger, something more permanent. Stone castles began to replace timber ones, marking a new era in medieval architecture. Picture the first stones being hauled up by hand, each one heavy, rough, and cold to touch. Masons worked slowly and meticulously, shaping each stone so that it fit precisely with its neighbors, creating walls that could stand hundreds of years. The transition from wood to stone was not just a change of materials, it was a change in philosophy. Builders were no longer constructing temporary shelters, they were crafting monumental structures designed to endure time, storms, and human ambition. Towers became taller, walls thicker, and gates more complex. Every aspect of the castle, from its foundations to its battlements, reflected a combination of practical engineering and imaginative design. The masons understood not only how to make a wall strong but also how to create spaces within it, narrow staircases, hidden chambers, and cleverly placed openings for observation or defense. Even the placement of each stone could influence the overall stability, as weight and balance were considered with precision. Imagine walking through the courtyard as stone towers rise above you, the sunlight glinting off rough surfaces, while workers shape walls and carve intricate details with quiet concentration. This process could take decades. Lords invested enormous resources into building these castles, employing hundreds of workers, and patiently overseeing the transformation from simple wooden keeps to enduring stone fortresses. Yet even with all this labor, the goal was not merely durability. Castles were symbols of power, demonstrating wealth, influence, and authority to anyone who approached. The stone walls told a story that could not, one of permanence, resilience, and subtle ingenuity. Imagine standing in the center of a newly completed stone castle, the wind echoing across its walls, sunlight glancing off towers and arrow slits, and feeling the quiet accomplishment of centuries of careful thought and human effort. The shift from wood to stone shows the evolution of medieval understanding, where builders combined observation, experimentation, and imagination to create structures that were both protective and awe-inspiring. These castles, born from humble timber, became monumental achievements of architecture and human skill, quietly shaping the landscape and history for generations to come. The walls and towers of a medieval castle were far more than simple barriers. They were carefully thought-out instruments of protection, crafted to withstand siege, weather, and time itself. Imagine walking slowly along the base of a massive stone wall, feeling the rough texture beneath your fingertips, sensing the centuries of labor and knowledge that went into its construction. Every wall had a purpose. Thick, towering stone could resist battering rams, fire, and arrows, while battlements provided cover for archers. Arrow slits were narrow but perfectly placed to allow defenders to shoot without exposing themselves, and their angles were designed so that attackers would struggle to find any safe approach. Towers were placed strategically along the walls, not only for defense but also for surveillance. From the highest points, guards could see miles across valleys, rivers, and forests, spotting travelers, armies, or raiders long before they approached. These towers were often cylindrical or square, each shape carefully chosen for structural stability and defensive advantage. As you move along the wall in your imagination, consider the moat or ditch that often surrounded the castle. Water, marshland, or simply a deep trench could slow enemies and make assaults far more difficult. Drawbridges controlled access to gates, which themselves were reinforced with thick timber and iron, often adorned with complex locking mechanisms and heavy portcullises. Even the shape of walls reflected strategic thinking. Angled or rounded walls could deflect projectiles, while the thickness at the base allowed them to bear the enormous weight of towers above. Builders were architects and military engineers at the same time, combining knowledge of geometry, material strength, and human behavior. They understood that a castle's power lay not only in its physical fortifications but also in the psychological impression it made. A well-defended fortress could deter attackers before a single arrow was shot, its massive stone walls speaking silently of authority, vigilance, and strength. Inside the walls, defensive features extended into the design of gates, courtyards, and towers. Murder holes above entryways allowed defenders to pour boiling water or oil onto intruders. machicolations projected from walls, providing platforms for dropping stones or other deterrents. These features were subtle yet highly effective, evidence of careful observation and ingenuity. Imagine walking along a battlement, seeing the faint light filtering through arrow slits, sensing the overlapping layers of protection designed to make the castle nearly impregnable. Every stone was placed not just for strength, but to create a system in which every defensive element complemented the others. It was a combination of architecture, strategy, and human understanding, executed quietly, without the need for unnecessary decoration or flair. Even centuries later, these walls and towers remain a testament to the intelligence and foresight of their builders. They were not only shelters but statements of power and resilience, visible to the landscape around them and to everyone who dared to approach. Walking along these walls, one can appreciate the subtle genius of medieval engineers who transformed stone into living, protective architecture, blending practicality with quiet beauty. The castle's defenses were an intricate dance of design and purpose, a silent dialogue between the builders, the land, and anyone who might ever seek to challenge them. Stepping inside a medieval castle reveals a world that is at once bustling and quietly ordered, a place where life moved at a rhythm dictated by both necessity and tradition. Imagine walking through a heavy wooden gate into a wide courtyard, the stones worn smooth by generations of feet, the air carrying the scent of smoke from the kitchens and the faint tang of animals from nearby stables. Servants moved deliberately, carrying water from the well or delivering food to the great hall, while blacksmiths hammer quietly in shaded corners, shaping metal for armor and tools. Children, aware of the boundaries and rules of their environment, dart along corridors or peek around corners, their laughter echoing softly against the stone walls. Every aspect of castle life was carefully organized, reflecting the genius of its builders and the hierarchy of its inhabitants. Large kitchens provided warmth and sustenance, often connected to storage rooms where food and drink were kept safe from both thieves and spoilage. The design of these spaces ensured that daily life could continue smoothly, even during times of conflict or siege. Courtyards were central to this life, offering a safe outdoor space for work, leisure, and gathering. Imagine the gentle sunlight falling across the cobblestones, illuminating the carefully arranged buildings that surrounded the yard, each with its own purpose, from the armory to the bakehouse, from the barracks to the workshops. The Great Hall, often the largest and most impressive room in the castle, served as the center for communal activities. Here, meals were shared, decisions made, and celebrations held. The acoustics of the high stone walls carried the sound of voices, creating a sense of unity and order. Even in the quieter chambers, the architecture reflected careful thought. Thick walls provided insulation and security, small windows allowed light while minimizing vulnerability, and fireplaces ensured warmth. Hidden passages and spiral staircases added both functionality and subtle intrigue, allowing movement that was not immediately obvious to all. These spaces demonstrate the dual nature of castle design, where practicality met ingenuity, and defense existed alongside domestic comfort. Life in the castle required cooperation and attention, as every individual had a role to play. Soldiers trained quietly in courtyards or towers, preparing for potential conflicts, while servants maintained the cleanliness and functionality of living spaces. The lord and his family moved within this structure, enjoying relative comfort yet remaining ever mindful of the surrounding dangers. Imagine the interplay of light and shadow as the day passes, the warmth of the sun contrasting with the cool interior of the stone chambers, and the gentle hum of activity that fills the air. Every element, from the layout of buildings to the positioning of doors and windows, was deliberate, designed to maximize safety, efficiency, and the smooth running of daily life. This quiet orchestration of space, function, and human activity reflects a subtle brilliance that is often overlooked by those who admire castles only for their appearance. The genius of the medieval castle lies as much in its interior, in the way it accommodated people, work, and life, as it does in its towering walls and imposing exterior. Walking through these corridors, imagining the lives of those who moved here centuries ago, one can feel the intelligence, care, and rhythm embedded in every stone, every doorway, and every courtyard. The castle was not only a fortress, it was a carefully organized community, a living structure designed to endure both time and the complexities of human life. One of the most fascinating aspects of medieval castles lies not in the towering walls or imposing battlements, but in the hidden spaces that few visitors ever saw. Secret passages, hidden rooms, and narrow corridors were carefully built into the fabric of the fortress, known only to a select few who lived or worked there. Imagine walking through a quiet corridor, the cool stone pressing in on either side, when suddenly a stone slides or a concealed door swings open to reveal a narrow passage winding its way into shadow. These hidden spaces served many purposes. Some were escape routes, allowing inhabitants to flee unseen during a siege or attack. Others were used to deliver supplies or messages without being detected, providing a silent lifeline when the castle was surrounded. In certain cases, chambers concealed treasures, important documents, or even prisoners, ensuring that the most valuable assets of the lord and his family were kept secure from prying eyes. The genius of these designs lies in their subtlety. Builders had to integrate them seamlessly into the castle's structure, making them nearly invisible, while still maintaining structural integrity. A hidden room might be tucked behind a false wall or under a staircase, accessible only by those who knew the precise mechanism to reveal it. These spaces were also carefully considered for safety. Narrow staircases or tight corridors could slow intruders, giving defenders time to respond. Ventilation and access to light were often minimal, but enough to allow discreet movement. Imagine tracing your fingers along the walls, feeling the slight differences in stone or the seam that hints at a concealed doorway. The very existence of these hidden areas reflects a combination of practical intelligence and creative imagination, a quiet brilliance that few would appreciate at a glance. These passages were not mere curiosities, they were vital components of the castle's defense and functionality. Builders thought deeply about how people would move through the fortress, how threats might arise, and how to protect the lives and possessions of those inside. The placement of these secret spaces often required months or years of careful planning, aligning with staircases, walls, and chambers so that they would remain undiscovered. Some tunnels even led far beyond the walls of the castle, connecting to nearby forests, villages, or rivers, allowing escape or the transport of essential goods during times of siege. Imagine following one such passage in your mind, the air cooler than the open courtyards, the faint sound of distant life echoing through the stone, as you move along a route that only a handful of people might ever traverse. These hidden areas remind us that medieval castles were more than static symbols of power. They were living, intelligent structures, thoughtfully designed to protect, conceal, and manage human life within. The quiet ingenuity of their builders ensured that even if the visible walls fell or the gates were breached, the castle still held secrets that could save lives, safeguard treasures, and provide advantages invisible to any outsider. It is in these hidden passages and secret rooms that the medieval mind's subtle brilliance is most evident, blending practicality with imagination to create spaces that were as functional as they were mysterious, offering a glimpse into the careful thought, patience, and skill invested in every stone of the fortress. At the heart of every medieval castle stood the keep, a structure designed to embody strength, authority, and refuge. These keeps were often the tallest and most imposing part of the castle, rising above the surrounding walls and towers, a silent guardian over the lands below. Imagine approaching such a keep, its massive stone walls stretching upward, the windows narrow and deliberate, designed for observation and defense rather than comfort. Inside, the keep served multiple purposes. It was a home for the lord and his family, a stronghold in case of attack, and a symbol of power that could be seen for miles around. The placement and design of the keep required careful thought. Builders considered sightlines, the direction of prevailing winds, and the stability of foundations, ensuring that the structure could withstand both natural forces and human threats. Each tower attached to or surrounding the keep had a specific function, whether as a defensive position, a storage space, or living quarters. Imagine walking up the narrow, spiral staircase within a tower, the cool stone pressing against your hand, your eyes adjusting to the dim light filtering through narrow slits. From the top, the landscape stretches in every direction. Forests, rivers, roads, and villages lie below, a clear view that allowed defenders to anticipate movement and control access to the surrounding lands. The keep was also a space of domestic life. Rooms were arranged to provide warmth, light, and relative comfort within the cold stone. Fireplaces illuminated living spaces, while thick walls insulated against winter chill. Chambers were carefully planned, sometimes with hidden storage or secret exits built in, reflecting the ingenuity of the builders. Towers themselves varied in shape and size, each chosen for its structural advantage. Circular towers, for example, were better at deflecting projectiles and resisting collapse, while square towers could accommodate more complex interior spaces. The careful combination of shapes, walls, and internal divisions shows a deep understanding of both engineering and human need. Imagine standing at the edge of a tower, looking down along the walls, noticing the arrow slits, machicolations, and battlements, each a testament to deliberate planning and quiet brilliance. Every detail, from window placement to wall thickness, was chosen to maximize safety, surveillance, and habitability. The genius of these keeps lies in the balance they struck between defense, domesticity, and symbolism. They were designed to survive attack, endure the weather, and stand as a statement of the Lord's authority, while still providing a functional home for those who lived inside. Even centuries later, the impact of these designs is clear, as many keeps remain intact, standing tall as reminders of the skill, patience, and intelligence of their builders. Walking through the halls, imagining the lives of the people who occupied them, one can feel the rhythm of medieval life, the tension of potential conflict mixed with daily routines of work, meals, and family interaction. The keep was more than stone, it was the central heartbeat of the castle, a fusion of safety, authority, and thoughtful design, rising above the surrounding walls like a sentinel watching over time itself. Life inside a medieval castle was a delicate balance between routine, duty, and the quiet rhythms that shaped each day. Imagine walking through the bustling corridors of a castle, where every stone seems to hold memories of countless footsteps, every corner carries the soft echo of daily activity, and the air smells faintly of fire, baked bread, and the animals kept within the walls. The castle was not merely a fortress, it was a small community, a self-contained world where people worked, rested, and lived together under the watchful eyes of lords, guards, and servants. In the early morning, the castle slowly awoke. Servants carried water from wells, tending to the needs of the kitchens, the great hall, and the chambers. Fires were stoked in hearths to prepare food and heat rooms, and the clatter of pans and utensils mixed softly with the murmur of voices. Blacksmiths hammered quietly in workshops, crafting tools, weapons, and armor necessary for both survival and defense. Children moved carefully along corridors, learning the rules of their environment, occasionally sneaking a playful glance around a corner or the briefest game of chase in the courtyard. Life in the castle followed a rhythm dictated by necessity, hierarchy, and seasons. Lords and their families would rise later, enjoying meals in the great hall, sometimes accompanied by small gatherings or councils to discuss affairs of the surrounding lands. Guards patrolled the walls and towers, their eyes scanning the distant forests and roads for travelers or potential threats, quietly ensuring the safety of all within. The castle spaces were carefully organized to accommodate both work and leisure. Courtyards provided room for training, gatherings, or quiet walks. Kitchens and storage rooms ensured that life continued smoothly even during times of scarcity. Bedrooms, often small and functional, offered warmth and security, while hidden chambers or narrow corridors added a layer of intrigue, safety, and practicality. Imagine the interplay of light and shadow as the sun moved across the walls, highlighting arches, staircases, and doorways, and painting a living picture of order and subtle beauty. Even daily chores were shaped by the architecture. Water had to be carried, food prepared, animals cared for, and repairs made, all within the protective walls. This required cooperation, awareness, and skill, blending the labor of servants, soldiers, and craftsmen into a quiet, efficient system. Social interactions were also deeply influenced by castle life. Each person knew their place, and rules governed behavior, speech, and movement. Yet there was still room for moments of quiet companionship, storytelling by firelight, and shared meals in the great hall that bound the community together. Imagine a soft evening, the castle settling into calm as tasks wind down, torches casting gentle light along stone corridors, and a hush falling over the courtyard. In these quiet moments, one can sense the subtle rhythm of medieval life, the blend of work, vigilance, and fleeting leisure. The genius of castle design extends not only to defense but to fostering a community where each individual's role contributed to the safety, comfort, and continuity of daily life. Every corridor, courtyard, and chamber was more than stone and mortar. It was a carefully orchestrated space that shaped the lives of those who called the fortress home, a testament to human ingenuity and the enduring ability to create order, security, and quiet beauty within walls of stone. Food was the lifeblood of the castle, a source of sustenance, comfort, and occasionally celebration. Imagine the castle kitchens in the early morning, warm with the glow of fires and bustling with activity. Servants stoked hearths, kneaded dough, chopped herbs, and prepared meat, while the smell of fresh bread mingled with the earthy scent of roasting meats and the faint tang of preserved fish. Kitchens were large, organized, and carefully designed to handle the daily needs of everyone living within the fortress. Fireplaces were deep and wide, with spits for roasting and cauldrons for stews. Storage rooms nearby held barrels of grains, dried fruits, salted meats, and cheeses, allowing the castle to endure periods when supplies from the outside were scarce. Meals were often simple for the servants and soldiers: porridge, bread, cheese, and occasional stew. For the lord and his family, however, meals could be elaborate, reflecting both wealth and social status. Imagine entering the great hall during a feast, long wooden tables lined with platters of roasted fowl, fresh bread, fruits, nuts, and jugs of ale or wine. Candles flickered against the stone walls, casting gentle shadows, while the soft murmur of conversation filled the air. Feasts were carefully orchestrated affairs, with attention paid not only to the food itself but also to its presentation, the order in which dishes were served, and the flow of conversation. There were occasions for alliances, discussions of governance, and quiet celebration. Cooking required skill, knowledge of preservation, and an understanding of flavor. Herbs, spices, and local produce were combined to enhance meals, while salt and smoke preserved foods for winter months. Imagine the meticulous care of the cooks, tending to roasting spits, ensuring that stews simmered evenly, and keeping bread warm in wooden ovens. Daily life in the castle revolved around these routines of preparation, service, and nourishment, blending the practical necessity of sustenance with the quiet artistry of cooking. Even simple meals were shaped by the architecture of the castle, with kitchens, pantries, and dining halls positioned to maximize efficiency and minimize effort. The movement of food from storage to kitchen to table followed a careful rhythm, reflecting both organization and ingenuity. Imagine the evening meal winding down, the smell of smoke and roasting giving way to the warmth of embers, and the castle settling into quiet after a day of work. Meals were more than mere survival. They were moments that structured life, brought people together, and showcased the subtle sophistication of medieval living. Every dish, every preparation, every carefully arranged table tells a story of resourcefulness, attention, and culture. The castle's food system demonstrates a quiet genius in planning and organization, ensuring that even within stone walls, life could continue, flourish, and find occasional moments of comfort and delight. From the simplest porridge to the grandest feast, the sustenance of the castle reflects the balance between practicality, artistry, and the rhythms of life that shaped the experiences of everyone who lived within these formidable walls.